Hello, and welcome to the My Father Said podcast, where we discuss all things faith, finance, and family. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan. I'm both a father and a son.
Hey, and I'm Robert. I am Ryan's dad, and I am my father's son.
We're so happy you're with us today. Today, we are going to talk about timing the market versus time in the market.
That's not the same thing?
No. Timing and time in are very different. Timing has a G on the end. Time in does not.
Are these things even necessary? I mean, time in, timing.
Absolutely.
Are you talking about like a 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock thing, or what are you talking about?
No, we're talking about people trying to time the market, getting into the market and out of the market, trying to avoid the bad days and get the good days. That's what we're talking about.
What do you mean trying? I mean, after all, we have discovered the secret to avoiding the worst days and only being in the market on the best days. We've got that. We know how to do that.
Well, maybe you do. I can't even get out of the door and in the door on time. So I certainly can't do that.
I see. Well, yeah. Well, all jokes aside, and we are being facetious, and the reason we're being facetious is because this is one of the, I'm going to use some well thought out words to describe what I'm getting ready to say. One of the most boneheadedest things that people try to do is time the market. And of course, they use expert opinions, which is usually their favorite television broadcast or their favorite television speaker or their favorite author or whoever it is who gives a headline out that, hey, this is coming, this crash is coming soon. And you know, if eventually you scream the sky is falling long and often enough, eventually it might fall on a particular day, but it doesn't fall every day. And it doesn't also jump up out of the ground every day either. But we see probably one of the worst decisions any investor makes is reacting with emotion, pure, raw emotion, without giving any consideration to historical precedents, how the markets have behaved in every other major life-ending disaster that has taken place prior to the latest one that's coming next week, how they react and how they just make foolish decisions. And we have some data today, Ryan, to show them if they miss the best days of a market year, how much it actually costs them in monies over time. And of course, we're doing this, we're utilizing the S&P 500. And we're going to be doing this study that we're going to show you today. It's going to be from January 1st of 2003 to December 31st of 2022. So we're not giving you a hypothetical number today, guys. We are going to be giving you a fixed 20-year span using the S&P 500's actual performance as what we're going to be showing you. So, hey, get ready and let's take a look at this. One thing I want to share before I turn it back over to Ryan here to see where he takes us with this. A few weeks back, we did a podcast where we looked at our annual survey of our millionaire clients that we have here in our firm. And we asked questions. And one of the questions we asked them was, if you could go back in time and speak to your younger self, what advice would you give your younger self as they prepare for their financial future moving forward? And one of the responses we got back, one of our folks who contributed to the survey said that if he could go back in time and speak to his younger self, he would tell his younger self that, listen, you must remember you have to have persistence, patience, intentionality, and diligence when it comes to being in the market. You get invested, you stay invested, you always be buying. That's what he said that he would say to himself. And this is someone who started from nothing and is now at a 7-figure status. And as he looks back in time, he's got experience. Yeah. So I think this program we're sharing today is going to give some great information that's going to support what he shared with us in the survey, or she shared with us, whichever one it was. And we just go from there. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you to take us where you're going to take us, and I hope it's got something to do with the program we're wanting to do today.
We're going to make millions today, everybody. We're going to tell you which days to stay in the market and which days to get out. Right? Is that what we're doing?
That's the
the exact opposite of what we're doing.
No, that's not what we're doing.
So,
You know this has got to go through compliance, right? Yeah. Okay. All right.
We are being facetious.
That's good. That is good.
No, so one of the things that we really wanted to do was put tangible numbers out there. So the 20-year period that Robert was talking about, we're actually going to start and say, hey, if 20 years ago, January 1st of 2003, if you started with a $10,000 investment in the S&P 500 and you just left it alone,
let it sit,
how it performed versus if you were out of the market for these days, and then we're going to just try and tell you guys what the difference in the performance of your portfolio is when you try to time it versus when you just leave it alone and you stick to that discipline.
So we're saying you left it alone during the housing crisis.
Yeah, 2008, yeah.
During the banking crisis.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
During a dot-com bubble burst.
That's right.
During
COVID, when COVID hit.
During COVID. Yeah. During military conflicts overseas. Mm-hmm. During 9/11.
Yeah, right after. Yeah.
During things such as that. You're just saying this, you're going to give us some information based on if we just did nothing but remained invested.
That's right. Yeah. So the first thing we want to tell you guys is, again, based off of real performance of the S&P 500, if you started 20 years ago, January 1st of 2003, and you started with a $10,000 investment and you just left it alone, you didn't pull anything out, and the big thing, you didn't put any other money in. You just put $10,000 in and didn't do a thing else. December 31st of 2022, you would sit at $64,844. So you started with $10,000, you didn't do anything, you just left it alone. It 6 times over itself.
So the S&P 500, based on those numbers over the past 20 years, did an average rate of return annually of 9.8%.
Yeah.
Some years would have been higher, some years would have been lower, but it averaged about 9.8%. And whenever you hear an investment person say to you, hey, the indexes, you should look at a 10% rate of return, that's reasonable.
Yes.
All right? It's not a guarantee. I mean, because we don't know what's going to happen during the time that you're going to be pulling money out of the market. But what we do know is, historically speaking, and we have these past 20 years to look at, historically speaking, the monies are going to perform reasonably well over that time, over a length of time. Day to day, it's going to be bouncing, it's going to be jumping.
Maybe even year to year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But sometimes we have people, as we've alluded to, who they just panic. I don't know if they come into this investment world with grandeur in their eyes and they're thinking, I'm going to put money in and it's only always going to go up. Well, that's not the case, because the markets go down.
Right.
They do. I mean, it just happens. We just had one happen this past October. But markets go down, they'll come back up, and if they don't come back up, well, then we're all broke. So I mean, what are you going to do with your money anyway?
Yeah.
So, but anyhow, so we look at this and we say, okay, well, what if the person says, I think I know when to get out, and I think I know when to get back in, which, by the way, I want to go ahead and give full disclosure. Nobody knows that.
No.
If I knew that, 2 things I want you to understand. 1, I wouldn't be sitting in front of you with this podcast. Okay. 2, I would be on my own private island in the Caribbean somewhere, unbeknownst to anyone else, and I would absolutely be enjoying whatever my heart desired. Absolutely be doing that. But look, I'm in front of you at a podcast, and we're in Columbia, South Carolina. So
you say that like it's a bad thing.
Yeah, I do not know how to time the market. But watch this. This is important that we look at. Over this same 20-year span, had you missed only the 10 best days of the market over the last 20 years, and stop and think about this. This is missing 1 day every 2 years.
Right, yeah.
Which, that's, when it comes to the best days, had you missed the 10 best days over the last 20 years, your investment, instead of being $64,844, would have only been $29,708.
Yeah.
That is a $35,000 difference for just missing the 10 best days.
You know what's great about that, though, is you and we would call time in the market stupid. That's probably the word we would use. Mm-hmm. If you were trying to time the market and you made that stupid mistake and you missed those days, the market still tripled. You still, that $10,000 turned to $29,000. So the market does have that uncanny effect of outpacing your dumb decisions some of the time. So,
but even that return, Ryan, that return was 5.6%.
Yeah.
Versus 9.8. Mm-hmm. That's a noticeable difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is. It's making money, mm-hmm. but is it keeping up with the cost of living?
Yeah.
I mean, that you've got that to consider as well. Mm-hmm. So
you made a comment earlier too. You said you threw the word emotion in there. You've been doing this how many years now?
Investing, probably
financial advising.
Financial advising, close to 35 years.
35 years. When you see people make emotional decisions, is it usually when the market's doing well or the market's doing bad?
It's both. But the fear is when the market's doing bad. Mm-hmm. Greed is when the market's doing well.
Yeah. Okay.
So both emotions are in there, and we try our best to keep our clients in the middle of this because greed is just as dangerous as fear.
Sure.
Both of them cause you to make decisions that are going to be detrimental. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually, if you stay out there on that limb, it's eventually going to fall off from the weight of your bad decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me ask you this. When you see people making emotional decisions about getting out of the market, mm-hmm. is that usually when it's when the market's performing well or when the market's
it's always when it's down.
Yeah.
Always when it's down.
The next thing we wanted to point out is, it's easy to stay in the market when everything's going well. And it's when everything's down and you're listening to Fox News and CNN and you're listening to your brother-in-law and everything's down, that's when people decide to start getting out of the market. We were talking about if you missed the 10 best days, how your $10,000 investment would go from $64,000 to that $29,000. Mm-hmm. Do you know that 7 of the best 10 days in the last 20 years were all during bear markets when the market was down? So everybody is trying to get out when the market is down. But that is when 7 of the best 10 days were during the downturn. To put that in example for you, let's see. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the best 10 days were in 2008. Everybody
of the last 20 years?
Of the last 20 years. Yeah. 5 of those 10 days were in 2008. So as the housing market crashed, people were getting out of the market. Mm-hmm. If you got out, you missed 5 of the best 10 days.
Yeah. And I know we're talking about lump sum investing here, that $10,000. But what you just said with 7 of the 10 days being in a bear market, 7 mm-hmm. of the best 10 days mm-hmm. being in a bear mm-hmm. market, that's why the prior podcast we did on dollar cost averaging, mm-hmm. that's why it's so effective.
Yes.
Because it takes the emotion out. You're doing it systematically on a schedule, and you're buying at highs and lows and everything in between. But when it goes into these low times, you're taking advantage, removing the emotion, taking advantage of buying things cheap. I put it this way, when would I prefer to buy a new car? When the car is regular price, when it's marked up, or if I can get it for 20 or 30% off? When would I rather buy it? Of course, I'd rather buy it when I can get it off. But a lot of people seem to forget that very same logic when it comes to their money being in the market.
Yeah.
They panic and they jump out. The next thing you know, they've made a bad decision. Because what always happens, what inevitably happens, is when a person jumps out of the market, they have no established strategy for when they're going to go back in the market.
Absolutely.
And what they always do, human nature is the one thing that caused them to jump out is the same thing that's going to prevent them from getting back in. if in their mind the market is low, it's bad, and they're losing things, they're not going to get back in until somebody on MSNBC, somebody on CNN, somebody on Fox, or whoever says to them, man, the market is at an all-time high. And then they go, oh, great, it's time to get back in, not realizing they have lost the run-up that has just taken place. They were left behind. So what have they done? They sold low. They're buying high.
The exact opposite thing we want.
And here we go again. You're getting ready to make the mistake. Because you look at the following, that's 10 days. If you missed the 10 best days, your rate of return over 20 years would have been 5.6. But what if we just doubled that? And what if you missed the 20 best days? Well, you find out the rate of return drops from 5.6 to 2.9%. They would have made over 20 years. They were up $17,826 as their value. They have lost out on $47,000 by missing 1 day a year on average.
Yes,
is what they're doing. They have lost out on practically all the growth they could have had.
Yeah. Another thing too is, well, hey, some growth is better than no growth, but you got to think about it. Inflation, the average of inflation is what, 3.2?
Depends on who you talk to, but it's eating it away.
Yeah, 2.9. You're not even keeping up with inflation at that point. So now at this point, we have missed 1 day a year. We are now shooting ourselves in the foot.
Yeah.
That is where we are now, just for missing 1 day a year on average.
The best day.
Yeah.
The best day each
year.
Let's emphasize that. We're missing the best day.
The best day, yep.
But it's even worse than that. It's even worse than that. And this is where we really get to come and really break the bad news to you. So let's say you're in the market, you put in your 10,000 and you missed the 30 best days. Well, in essence, if you missed the 30 best days, a culmination of a month of days over the past 20 years, according to the information that we have, your rate of return is 0.8 of 1%. Your 10,000 is worth $11,700.
Yeah.
You basically have not made a dime.
None.
Now so you've been in there for 20 years trying to time the market, driving yourself crazy over 20 years, running your anxiety up, your blood pressure is high, your heart is skipping beats, your marriage is falling apart, nobody likes you, nobody invites you over for Christmas, nobody invites you over for parties because you've got a sour look on your face like you're constipated or something. And what happens here is it's all because you are trying to spend all your time trying to time the market because somebody on television who doesn't even know your name, doesn't even know you exist, has made a comment saying, I think the market's in for a bad year. And you go, oh my God, that guy who I don't even know, he said this, I got to get my money out, Martha. And you run and you get the money out. And 20 years later, Martha wakes up and realizes, I married an idiot because he has tried to time the market. And 20 years later, we're no better off than where we were 20 years ago, other than we're overweight, we've lost a lot of our teeth, our hair is thinned out, and we're bigger in our clothes.
That sounded super personal to you. Did you know somebody that this happened to?
Yeah, I do. Anyway, I needed to get that off my chest. Yeah.
So you're not a fan of time in the market. Is that what I'm gathering?
Well, no, if it works, yeah, I'd love timing the market if it can work, but I'm no good at it. I stink at it. Great day in the morning. I had to remind myself this today. When I was looking at my own portfolio, I was looking at some stocks that I purchased about 3 years ago. One of them was a recommendation of yours, by the way, and I'm upside down on them still, and I'm sitting there getting ready to hit the button and say, I want to sell. I want to get out of these things. Like this podcast, and I'm reading our podcast today, and I'm like, I can't sell these things today and then go in there and tell our listeners, you got to stay in the market.
Yeah, sell it
that
tomorrow.
Might be hypocritical because, I'm going to do it tomorrow. Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to do it today. But, I don't want to be a hypocrite.
Hey, so let me get this straight. You've been doing this for 35 years, and you've been investing for even longer, and sometimes you still have to, control yourself, discipline yourself with that?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm telling you, fear is real. Emotions are strong. Emotions can cause you to do some of the dumbest things. Well, remember that girl you started dating in college? You remember the one who was from up. She was a Yankee. You remember her? Yeah.
I didn't, Lexi. I didn't date anybody before you. You're the only woman that exists. So I don't.
Yeah,
I
because
don't know what
we
that's
weren't
talking
sure.
about.
We weren't sure that she was exactly. Well, we'll just leave it there. we won't say that. But you remember when she told your mama that she wears that dress well? Do you remember that?
No.
Oh, I have to tell you about that. Ask your mama. Ask your mama about that girl who said, "Miss Linda, you wear that dress well."
I dated this girl.
Yeah. And your mama grinned and looked for a knife somewhere because she was going to slice and dice her.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it was. Yeah.
Well, this took a turn.
Yes, it did.
I don't know what this has to do with time in the market.
Yes, it does. Well, it would have led to time in prison. Is what it would have led to. But anyway, so keep in mind, we're having fun with this, but keep in mind, we've just talked about missing the 30 best days over a 20-year window. Mm-hmm. But my gosh, look what happens if it went further. You put in 10,000 and you missed the 40 best days.
Yeah. On average, you miss the 2 best days every year. Now you have gone from that $10,000 to you've got $8,048.
Yeah.
What rate of return is that?
Well, that's a whopping negative 1.1. But even worse, over 20 years, you went back and forth with the futile exercise of trying to outsmart the expert, trying to outsmart the market, trying to stand at the end of the ocean and hold back the tides as they go from high to low to high to low without any success, and you've lost money. That's what they've done. And that's if you miss just the 40 best days. If you miss, let's just go on out. If you miss 60 months, if you miss 60 days of the past 20 years, the best 60 days, your $10,000 investment is $4,205. And I think that's the real story here.
Yeah.
Because people who try to time the market according to this, you're going to lose.
Yes.
You're not going to win that game. It's a game that you are not good enough to do. We live in money every day here in what we do as a profession in doing financial advising. And I will say to you that when we come in the mornings, we do not have any true blue feeling of what the market's going to do that day. Can't tell you.
No.
I wish we could, but we cannot tell you. But one thing we can tell you is history is usually a good indicator of what you should anticipate the behavior of money to be in any and everything that happens in the world. We've had the Iran crisis. We've had the Vietnam War. We've had the Great Depression. We've had all kinds of things happen over time, and we look back at how the markets have zigged and how they have zagged, how they have gone up, how they've gone down in every situation, and it has been proven wherever you go in there, if you put your money in and you let it stay put, you leave it be in a well-diversified portfolio, if you leave it be, time can be your friend. Timing is going to be your enemy.
Yes.
It's going to be your enemy because you don't know timing's first name. You don't know its last name. It's like a vapor in the wind. It's here one moment, it's gone the next. And you just can't keep up with it. It's an impossibility. It's an impossibility. And we just gave you, see, he's speechless. So we just gave you a 20-year window. That was your cue to jump in, and you're.
I was soaking it in. Yeah, what I was thinking about was actually thinking.
You were thinking about the girl who told your mom she wears that dress well.
No, Alexi, I was not thinking about another girl. What I was thinking about was, people who time the market, they lose money. Mm-hmm. And then those are the same people that are, oh, you can't make any money in the market. Oh no, you can't, you're not going to make any money. You're going to lose money. A good practice for our listeners and even for us would be talk to people who have made money in the market and get their opinion.
Absolutely.
Because the ones who have made money in the market, they've left it alone. A great example of that is our millionaire survey that we did. Those people stayed in the market. They're not broke, and they're not ones saying, well, I didn't make any money, stay out of the market. No, they're saying, hey, I made this much money in the market, and I stayed in. So that's another thing is just if you're unsure about timing the market or time in the market, talk to people who've made money in the market. See what they say. Odds are they've been in the market. They've left the money alone. They've put money in there year over year. They've done the dollar cost averaging, and they just left it alone.
That's exactly right. You just said, the biblical precedent of that, we surround ourselves with wise counsel.
Yeah.
And part of surrounding ourselves with wise counsel is to ask questions, to listen, implement. That's all part of that. Ask questions, listen, implement. It does no good to ask the questions if you're not going to listen. It does no good to listen if you're not going to implement.
Yeah.
So decide who you want to be giving you guidance. Do you want the person who has been trying to time the market, and I don't care if they say they're winning or not, they're lying. All right. And if they are winning at this moment, they're going to lose.
Yeah, right. They might be winning right now.
Yeah, they're going to lose. So find the people who are where you want to be, ask them the questions, and let them give you guidance. Now, just for kicks, we just did a 20-year survey. We're just going to give you a couple of numbers on a 40-year on a time span. We grabbed a paper from Fidelity, went on their site and pulled it from there. Anybody can get it. And it's the time span from January 1st to 1980 to December 31st, 2022. So now instead of a 20-year time span, we're looking at a 40-year time span. That same $10,000 investment, had it been done 42 years ago instead of 20 years ago,
yep.
That $10,000 investment would have grown to $1,082,000.
Now, another thing to highlight here is that was a one-time $10,000 contribution. That was not dollar cost averaging. That was not more than one contribution. That was I put $10,000 away, and then I didn't look at it for 40 years.
Yeah, so for our high school grads or our college grads, go talk to your mom and dad and go say to them, Mom, Dad, I am going to plan for my financial future. All I need from you is $10,000. You give me $10,000, I won't spend it on anything. I'm going to put it, you're already out of the house. I'm going to put it, and you're already over 18, 20 years old. Who are you anyway?
Do it for Hazel. Do it for Hazel and Adeline.
I'm trying to teach you what to do for your children. Anyway, so just say, this is what I want to do, and Mom and Dad, I'm sure, will fall over excited about giving you that money for you to retire. But if not, then man up, put on your big boy pants and girls, and go out and get a job. Be a good, hardworking American. Quit being a blight on society. Quit being somebody with your hand out like you're expected to receive something that you haven't earned. Go make your own way. Whew.
That sounded personal, too.
It did, too. It did, too. You're welcome. Yeah. The crowd's outside the window cheering for that. But set good. Money aside. But here, back to this. So watch this. Just a couple of things to share with you. Over the last 42 years, just to think about missing days, I want you to think about 42 years, and I want you to think of the number of days that is in 42 years. Had you missed the 50 best days over the last 42 years, that $10,000 would have turned into a whopping $76,000. You would have missed out on $1 million worth of growth.
Yep.
50 days over the last 42 years. You've got to quit chasing returns. You have to decide what you want your money to do for you. Have a plan, stick to the plan, follow it, quit reacting on emotion, find a trusted advisor, follow their lead as long as their lead is getting you towards and closer to your ultimate objective, which is your plan, what you want to accomplish. Quit chasing returns. It is a fool's game. You're going to lose. You're going to lose every time. And that's what we want to bring to you today. Yeah. Time in the market, not timing. And I said it again earlier, and I want to come back and reiterate it. If we were good enough to time the market, you wouldn't know Robert or Ryan's name.
No.
we would be someplace. And if we were good enough to do it, everybody else would be good enough to do it. We wouldn't even have this conversation.
Yeah.
We would all be Michael Jordan billionaires. And he didn't get his by investing solely.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that's good. Another thing to think about is, do you want to be right now, or do you want to be right at retirement? Because
True story.
You could say What are we looking at?
I was showing you that right there.
Oh yeah. But one of the things to think about is, that old saying, a broken clock is right twice a day. You cannot consistently time the market. Once in a blue moon, you might get something right. But the question is, do you want to be right about, hey, the market's going to take off today, or hey, the market's going to go down today? Do you want to be right about that and fight that battle? Or do you want to have consistent discipline and be right at the end of, your working career when you're at retirement? Do you want to risk missing one of the best days, 5 of the best days, 7 of the best days to be right now? Or do you just want to leave it alone and have $1 million at retirement?
There you go. That's good stuff.
Another thing to think about is losses hurt worse than gains feel good. That is a principle that we have seen in this industry. Mm-hmm. People are risk averse. They would rather not lose something than they would to have a stellar gain. So think about that. You might think right now, hey, I want to time the market because I want to try and avoid this loss, or I want to try and have this gain. That loss is going to hurt a whole lot more than if you were right once a year trying to do one of those timings.
I think you're exactly right. All right. Well, I think that's the show for today. So, Ryan, won't you take us home, tell them how they could reach out to us, how they can find us, all kinds of things, because I'm hungry, I'm losing weight. We need some new clients. So how about help us out?
That's good. Yeah, so guys, thanks for listening with us today. Again, this was timing the market versus time in the market. If you want to put something in place where you can just be disciplined, have an advisor where you can bounce these ideas off, and maybe have someone help you to stay in the market when there's ups and downs, feel free to reach out to Robert or I, and we would love to get you set up on a plan and work with you through the ups and the downs of the market. If you would like that, feel free to reach out to us. Check out our website, the Templeton Group. Learn more about us from the Templeton, the My Father Said podcast. But with that,
you're not going to tell them about YouTube?
Oh, you can check us out on YouTube too. My Father Said podcast.
Yeah, you can actually see us. And whenever you see us, y'all can send a note or a message here to the office that Ryan needs to trim his beard. It's getting a little bit scraggly looking.
You like that?
Yeah.
You were trying to grow a beard for a while.
I like that as much as your mama's going to love being reminded by you of that story about that girl in that dress.
I don't know if I'm going to bring that up.
Oh, you're going to bring it up.
Sounds like that was tense.
It was emotional. It was emotional. But anyway, all right. So he's Ryan. I'm Robert. This is the My Father Said podcast. Listen, put this into practice. Quit chasing returns. Instead, pursue your individual objective. We're out of here. Bye.
The opinions voiced in this video are for general information only and are not specific advice or recommendations for any individual. All performance reference is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Economic forecasts set forth may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that strategies promoted will be successful.